Hey guys, in today's video I got my buddy, what's your name?
Scuba Chef.
Scuba Chef.
Would you forget to mention?
That's a joke. But anyway, we're going to be talking about finances and what it takes to really live out here in the Philippines and how much you should have in reserve. Stick around. Alright guys, so we were talking about this earlier, just kind of talking about different things. Now,
Right.
Me personally, when I came out here, I made a few big mistakes. I'm the first to admit it. I came over with 10,000 cash as far as a safety net. I'm not including like my 401k or anything or my monthly income, but I literally blew through it in like 6 months, and I believe I just kind of. It was almost like I wanted to just to impress. I'm like, oh, let me buy. Yeah, sure, I'll get. The first girl I was dating, I'd be like, oh, let's go get you a manicure. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And I kept comparing everything in U.S. I'd say, oh, in the U.S. it would cost this much, so this is really cheap.
Right.
And then
those little expenses add up after a while, don't they?
They do. And then once you've been here for a while, I think you're at this point that. You no longer really compare it to the U.S. You compare it to other prices in the Philippines. Right.
Your lifestyle living here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
So I think the first 6 months or so could be a time where you really blow through some money. So when you first got here, did you go through that?
I went exactly. I came here with blinders on. Okay. And, I just... And it's true because I didn't want to impress, but I wanted to have a good time.
Right.
So you know what? I went through a lot of my savings as well. When I came out here.
Right.
And I really wanted to live it up. And I think you come out here and it's not like I was hurting in America, but hey, your budget's a little bit different in America. Absolutely.
Right.
Versus coming out here. So when I did come out here, it's just like you wanted to come on out with that bathrobe and a nice cigar. The entire time. So I came here with blinders on and wanted to not just impress others, but kind of have fun and almost like impress myself, in a way.
Yeah. And I don't want to say I thought I was doing pretty okay in the U.S. I certainly was not rich. I was definitely in the middle class. But I never had, like this, with a swimming pool.
Absolutely.
Or like places I've lived at here where I've lived in a condo and the beach was nearby and I had a pool and a gym. I never had any of that,
Right.
And so you get here and you do get a little bit crazy with your money. At least I did. And
you know what? You want things that you've never maybe had before. Living in a gated community. Maybe that's something, back in the U.S.
Right.
When you're in Florida, gated communities, they were a ton around, but you also paid for that as well. So,
Yes.
that's just, it wasn't in my price range. So, coming here, you're like, oh, I want this feeling of this, I want this feeling of that. But then you come here, you're doing your budget, you see the area, and you're like, maybe I should have backed it off a little bit,
Yes.
So I guess I kind of compared it to that horse track, As soon as the gates were open, man, I was that horse I just took off. I took off.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, I think you can get to a point where you get a higher end condo or a place where you start realizing, God, I can get a place just as nice for this much over here, and
right.
You just kind of go in tourist mode is what I call it.
Yeah, you really do. You really do.
Like when Maya and I went to Bangkok, and I was budgeting in my head. I was like, we're going to spend this much. We spent like twice that much, and I think you did the same in Bangkok, right?
I sure did.
I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, oh my God, look at this food. Look at this. Look at that, But yeah. Now, we were also talking that I have a buddy, and he had income coming in, and he was living here in the Philippines, and it dried up. He didn't really have a secure income coming in, not like from a pension or anything. And it dried up, and he literally got to the point where he had no place to go back home. And even though he had enough to probably fly back home, he didn't have the money to reestablish himself, like deposits. I mean, I know you have family back home, but can you imagine if you didn't have family, how much it'd cost to reestablish yourself to get...
And then to do it, and obviously we hear that term paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
And God, I mean, a lot of Americans are doing that. I mean, on a daily basis, living. Yeah. So, but if you were to do that, absolutely, even here. And you know what? If you don't have that plan B, and that's what it is, do you have plan B? Do you have plan C?
You know,
what's, and that's, you have to have something set in place.
Yeah, for sure. And if you had to estimate, and I'm going to just throw out a number, but what would you say you would need to fly back home, reestablish, to get an apartment, get a car again? And I'm not even talking buying a car out in cash, but I'm thinking rents are crazy now.
Right.
Isn't the average rent something like $2,000 or something a month now? I can't remember.
I saw back in Florida where I was at, in the Naples, Fort Myers, in that area right now, $1,100 is renting a room in some places.
Exactly.
And obviously, as we know, the lower your rent goes, well, you're getting in a district where you may have an increase in crime. Let's be honest with you.
Yep.
If you get into cheaper housing, you're going to have an element around you that unfortunately is absolutely brutal.
Right.
So, it's like that fine line, a little give and take, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Because back home, yes, you can live, but, if you properly budget yourself here, you can have a beautiful way of life, which is a couple of steps up from maybe what you could have in the United States for the same type of retirement.
I mean, really, just rent alone, you could live a pretty good life here.
Yeah. Yes. And I've seen veterans, and of course I'm not going to mention names, but I've seen veterans where they're only collecting 60% disability, and that's the only thing that they do. So they decide to live in a place like where you just invited me to for $8K per month. So be it. So $8K per month, and then they'll go do $200 at the market, $200 American, and their grocery, they're filled. The refrigerator, the ref is filled. So you know what? It's really just setting that mature budget when you get here. And I know when I came, I came on with, I was running out of the gates.
Yep.
But obviously, as I'm here more and as I'm maturing, obviously, the things that you need to do.
That's like your next move.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, what kind of number do you think you would need if things went belly up for whatever reason, you had to go back home, reestablish yourself? I'm going to say around 10K.
I was going to say you better have at least a minimum of $7,500.
Yeah. Deposits, which are, can you imagine? Well, let's say you had to pay a 2-month deposit,
right? And
first month's rent on a place that's like $1,500 per month. That's $4,500 right there.
Right. The biggest thing that I could say is, back in the day, I think they switched the name to it to Candle Suites or something like that. But they used to have like those old places you could rent for the month, like a value place or something. So you fly in, rent it, and it's like your little 1-bedroom, and you get one little stove, and you get one little burner on there. So if you have to reestablish yourself that way, but even those places in Florida are going for like $1,100 a month.
I know.
And it's the size of this couch.
Crazy.
So. Minimum $7,500, and you're going to be bare bones in it.
For sure.
So, that should be definitely on your backup plan list.
Yeah, absolutely. So, now, I guess the last thing we'll talk about is medical. Now, I know you had a little motorcycle mishap, and luckily it was serious. So, it's your broke collarbone.
Right.
But it didn't end up costing much, because for a broke collarbone, they didn't have to...
The sling was $20 American.
Right.
And then the X-ray that I had was 10 American, and then the visit was 500 pesos, like 10. So everything together, I think, came out to like $37 or something like that.
Right.
For a broken collarbone. So and this was from an orthopedic surgeon as well.
Right.
So this is the guy that you come into, he goes, okay, yeah, this, and you're done. He's looking at serious stuff, compounds and...
Exactly. Now, if you would have taken that dump out on the street and not somewhere at a low speed,
sure,
and you really damaged it, and we're talking surgeries and overnight in a hospital.
Absolutely.
Bills can still add up quickly here. you recommend travel medical
I
insurance?
absolutely recommend travel medical insurance, and I know that I started that coming from your page, and obviously even on my page now I offer the same thing through your advice as well. And you know what? You have to have something there. God forbid something like that were to happen, and you have a tire come over the back of your leg. I mean, just pop your leg. I mean, you're talking some major surgeries here. And isn't it true in the Philippines, you have to settle up in some way before you're let go from the hospital?
Now, I'll share a story. I don't know if I told you this before, but I had a motorbike accident about 3 years ago in Dumaguete, and it was right during the time of the pandemic. And it was where I couldn't even hardly lift my arm up. So I know I did maybe some ligament damage or something. I don't know. Torn rotor cuff. But I didn't go to the doctor because I was like, this is too much of a headache. You got to do all these tests and just all these crazy extra money that you had to spend. And so I suffered through that for a while. It took me a while. Even to this day, I still feel a little bit of pain like when I'm at the gym on my shoulder. So, yeah, I wish I would have. Well, it was during the pandemic, but it would have definitely helped. You guys can. There's a link down in the description. There's links on Phil's page. Definitely a good thing to look into.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, Phil, I appreciate the conversation,
Thank you, brother.
The real talk about the finances in the Philippines. You can live very inexpensively here, but get out of tourist mode and do research before you get out here, and even when you're here. I guess one last thing. I would say it's good to stay in like an Airbnb for a month or two and just really kind of look and make sure you're at where you really want to be.
Right. And I did that for the first 2 months. And that's something I know we talked about in a previous video is, you know, when you are looking for your next place, hey, take some advice from the things we have. You know, go to that place. Go at 10 o'clock at night. Spend an hour there. Listen to the outside area. So you know what, you start to pick up things, obviously, as you become more of a veteran out here.
Yeah, don't jump into the first place you see because you could have a place that's even a little better with nicer views or whatever. So, all right, guys, check out Scuba Chef's channel. On his, he's got a lot of videos out at this point already. So
ribs weren't too bad, too.
The ribs were amazing. All right, guys, see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.